delegation from Nigeria, led by Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Maitama-Tuga, and that of the Republic of Niger, met in Niamey on Wednesday in a move aimed at restoring and strengthening diplomatic relations between Nigeria and the Republic of Niger. The visit marks a significant step in mending ties strained since the July 2023 coup in Niger. Tuga delivered a special message from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to General Abdurrahmane Tiani, the head of state of the Republic of Niger. The Nigerian delegation includes senior diplomats, policy advisors, and defense liaison officers. It was learned that discussions covered critical issues such as security cooperation, regional trade, economic development, and cross-border collaboration. This diplomatic engagement reaffirmed Nigeria's commitment to peaceful dialogue and regional stability. Joining us on this show to discuss how this meeting can repair the strained relationship between both countries is Professor Femi Otubanjo, Research Professor at Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, NIIA. Good morning, Prof, and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, compliments of the season, Prof. Well, very quickly.
Compliments of the season. Happy Good Friday.
Yeah.
If there's anything like that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
I would like you to address two things. Does this look like Nigeria actually capitulating to the Republic of Niger, considering that President Tinubu, as chairman of ECOWAS, was, the man in charge when sanctions were imposed on all these countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger? And why was the meeting not held in Nigeria? So this looks like capitulation, in my view, perhaps, because this is the second time. The other time it was General Christopher Musa who went to Niger on a peace meeting. Now it's our Minister of Foreign Affairs going there. All of a sudden we found ourselves begging Niger. Secondly, what is the significance of this? Basically, on the three major issues that were discussed at that meeting.
Well, the word capitulation does not apply here, particularly in diplomacy. It's about interest. It's your interest that determines your course of action. Fortunately, Nigeria had never seen itself as being in a hostile relations with Niger. Even in the heat of the proposal for a military intervention to restore diplomatic constitutional governance after the coup that overthrew President Mohamed Bazoum. Nigeria, you will remember, in spite of talking about military intervention and getting its defense forces prepared for it, still sent General Abdulsalam Abubakar on a peace mission. This was followed by the current Emir of Kano, Sanusi, and by the Sultan of Sokoto. Nigeria never really thought of Niger as a hostile country. And so any rapprochement with Niger today cannot be seen as capitulation. Nigeria, in the midst of that apparently hostile relationship, had always maintained diplomatic engagement. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs set up what you call an advisory group, which was supposed to look at how to restore peace and stability in the region and in the relations between the two countries. That group was supposed to set up what we call confidence building measures to try to maintain some normalcy in the relationship, in spite of the fact that Niger, having been suspended from ECOWAS, could not legitimately have diplomatic relations with Nigeria. That, the work of the advisory group led to the visit of General Christopher Musa in August 2024. There's a realization that Niger perhaps is one of the most important countries to Nigeria in terms of Nigeria's interests. It has the longest border with Nigeria.
Over 1,000 kilometers.
Of any countries. And of course, yes. And then there are 7 states that are contiguous to Niger. We are talking of Zamfara, Sokoto, Jigawa, Katsina, Bono, Yobe, and the rest of them. So virtually, but for the quack of the Berlin Conference of 1884, those 7 states and most of Niger should have been part of one country. Almost 60% of Niger is Hausa. So we are really one country. So it's not a country that we can afford to really quarrel with in any significant way. And of course, when you look at the kind of strategic interest that we have with Niger, River Niger, for example, it is out of understanding that Niger will not dam River Niger so that it doesn't affect our own ability to our own Kainji Dam and other uses of the waters of River Niger. We are building an oil pipeline, a gas pipeline, $13 billion to Algeria. From there, Algeria to the users in Western Europe, in Europe, where we have what we call a trans-Saharan fiber optic line. These are all things that are going through Niger. Niger is not a country we can toy with. Okay. We share security problems with Niger. We share problems of desertification. Okay. So many things. There are strategic, there are security, there is economic. You know, we have cross-border markets, we have trade, but more importantly,
yes, Professor,
almost 60% of Niger is Hausa.
Professor, as you
99% of those Hausa are Muslims.
Okay, Professor, as you speak on the economic significance of the relations between the two nations, you know, amidst all this tariff war that was going on from Donald Trump, it may have slipped through the cracks for many people that, in fact, the Alliance of Sahel States has imposed new import duties on ECOWAS states, including Nigeria, meaning Niger has now introduced a 0.5% import duty on any goods moving in from Nigeria. How are all these issues going to be ironed out, given the extent to which you've already outlined that we have trade relations with Niger?
Yeah, they will be ironed out. That is the work of diplomacy. That is why Matama Tuga has gone there to look at the nuts and bolts of a renewed relationship. You know, Nigeria has been able to renew its relationship in a more vigorous way because, one, Niger is no longer a sanctioned, a suspended state because it has left ECOWAS. It's no longer part of ECOWAS. So that status of being a member of ECOWAS that was suspended is no longer an encumbrance for Nigerians, because if you were to have been dealing with Niger openly when our own president is chairman of an organization that has suspended Niger, it would have been very awkward. But in spite of that, we were dealing with Niger. And Niger, of course, has the right to be hostile to us. For example, the oil pipeline has been taken through the Republic of Benin instead of Nigeria, because they have to diversify their own security, their own strategic interest. So some of these things are normal. The tariffs, maybe we are going to have retaliatory tariffs that will make them to see some sense, that what they are doing is not right. But that does not tell the picture. Our strategic interest with Niger is so overwhelming that Niger is not a country that we ought to antagonize. And so I think that what we should be looking at is the word interest. And wherever your interest is, that's where your policies must go. And Nigeria has been very, very, very robust in terms of its relationship with Niger. Niger is one of, as I said earlier, is one of its most important partners, largely because of these key interests. The interests are incredibly, phenomenally important. You take the gas pipeline, for example. We cannot afford to have it sabotaged. It's central to Nigeria's economic lifeline. Take terrorism, for example. Niger is part of what we call the multinational joint task force, which is combining to counter terrorism in the sub-region. Nigeria, through the Niger Commission, is working on things like desertification, economic and trade exchanges, and so on. I'm not sure if I can say that Nigeria needs Niger almost more than Niger needs Nigeria. So if we are consistent in pursuing diplomatic engagement with Niger, it's because we recognize the importance of Niger to both from a strategic and an economic viewpoint of perspective. So we must not see it as capitulation. Fortunately, one of the demands of ECOWAS is that Niger should develop a program of transition to civil rule. Niger has announced a program of a 5-year transition. Of course, that is really, in terms of the length of the transition, unacceptable. But Niger does not need to listen to ECOWAS because it's no longer a member of ECOWAS. And Nigeria is not encumbered, as I said, by the sanctions which were imposed and the suspension. So what is now needed is to renew the relationship and develop a realistic relationship with Niger, realistic in the sense of recognizing our own interests. Don't forget, Niger suddenly has become a rich country. It is supposed to be the fastest growing economy in the world in 2025. Its oil export has increased with the aid of the Chinese. And so it's a country that actually can compete with Nigeria in a very short time to come in terms of affluence and prosperity. So we cannot dismiss it as one poor little country in the desert. It's increasingly become an important country. And of course, from our own viewpoint, we also be abreast of our interests and almost do everything to promote it, even if it means that we have to stoop to what you might call a lesser country.
We are fast running out of time, and I do think that if our friends in Niger were listening to our conversation so far, they'd be very happy with your defense of their country. But I don't know that many people would agree that Nigeria needs Niger more than the country needs us, especially if we're looking at the rate of infrastructural development.
That's just an exaggeration.
I understand. I understand, just an exaggeration, I agree. But looking at the instance of infrastructural development, we do know that coming out of the meeting, there were conversations about the Trans-Sahara Highway, the building of a bridge. I do think that those are examples that Nigeria's own infrastructural development would seek to help Niger. Don't you agree?
I didn't get that question too well. Please.
Infrastructural development.
Sorry.
Coming out of the meeting of the two foreign ministers, they did talk about the building of a Trans-Sahara Highway, the building of bridges to link more transport options between Nigeria and Niger. So don't you think that that is an example of Nigeria doing its part and showing its importance to Niger? Because many Nigerians would believe that the relationship is definitely one that definitely benefits Niger too. Don't you agree with that? Very, very quickly.
Yes, both sides, any relationship, there are benefits and there are negatives. The Trans-Sahara Highway has been in the pipeline for a very long time. Now we are building the Lagos-Calabar, we are building the Sokoto-Badagry, and so on. All these interconnectivities are there, and these are things that we need in the long term for the development of our sub-region. We need for getting our massive youth population engaged. That's an area in which you have a lot of youth, what you might call youth bulge. That is young people who are unemployed, who are just waiting to explode. So we need a lot of economic activities that will help to create employment and improve prosperity in the sub-region. And of course, if Niger is doing well and we are doing well, then we will be able to avoid any explosion. Any explosion, political explosion, will have impact, consequences for us. Just like if there's problem in parts of northern Nigeria, there are a lot of Nigerians who are IDPs in Niger. So we need to continue to keep the relationship stable and peaceful and explore all the opportunities for development that obviously exist in the two countries.
Okay, Prof. Very quick comment. I use the word capitulation advisedly. I understand the point about nations.
No, it doesn't apply at all.
No, I understand the point about nations looking out for their own, enlightened self-interest. That's the basis of international diplomacy. So no nation will look out for the other country except they benefit from it. But the thing about the dam, you know that Niger has been building since 2008 what they call the Kaindaji hydro dam to reduce their dependence on Nigeria. And that Kaindaji hydro dam is going to be launched either late this year or in 2026. That, of course, will not be in Nigeria's interest. That's why, if we don't use the word capitulation, we'll say that Nigeria is begging Niger. In addition to the fact that recently the AES states, they imposed tariffs after Trump, example, on exports into their countries from all these neighboring countries. But, those are two basic points. But I would like you to comment on the fortune of ECOWAS at 50. ECOWAS will be 50 years old on May 28th. All of this is within the context of relations within the economic community of West African states.
Yes. Well, fortunately, the institute in which I work, NIIA, is organizing a conference on May 2021 at ECOWAS at 50 to look at the performance so far, the challenges, and the prospects for the future. Well, I always try to, when you look at international organizations, there's always an abundance of expectation, overabundance of expectation. People expect it to perform magic. And I always quote that if you think that, just like United Nations, the analogy is that if you think that education is expensive, try illiteracy. If you think that those international organizations are not useful, you can do without them and see the consequences. ECOWAS, its performance has not been stellar, but it was this ECOWAS that helped to stabilize and renew and reborn, or I don't know what that's what to use, Liberia and Sierra Leone. Those are significant achievements in its 50 years. Free movement of people, trade. Nigeria is one of the greatest beneficiaries of this free movement of people and goods. If you go to the airport, you see traders from West African countries with their baggages sleeping on the floor. They are waiting for their flights. So it's not achieved its optimum aspiration. That's because the French sabotaged ECOWAS for most of its existence. Because they were anxious to preserve their hegemony in their former colonies. And of course, the French countries dominate in numbers the ECOWAS. So ECOWAS was one step forward, two steps backward as a result of the push and pull of France.
Okay.
But now that some of them, like the AES countries, are trying to shed that rope that has been tied around their neck.
We can all agree that
I think that ECOWAS may perform better in the years to come.
Absolutely. We can all agree that
in terms of ACTA, the trade treaty, and so on.
Okay.
So our time is up, have Professor. Limitations. They have to be, they only operate to the extent to which their member states allow them.
Okay.
To which there are no big powers that hinder them. Just like the United States, Soviet Union, and China hinder
Professor, if you can hear me, unfortunately, we need to round up this conversation now.
In the Security Council. So if you have countries
that's
like
Professor
France that was pulling back.
Otubanjo giving us insights on the relations between Nigeria and Niger, and of course, ECOWAS's legacy that will certainly be tested by the emergence of the Alliance of Sahel States.